base, and Jose Rijo on the mound for the Reds. With Darling, did not talk to him. I just said hello to all the umpires when they came out to exchange the lineup cards last night. So we're set to go. The Reds and the Mets with identical records of 59 and 62. Herm Winningham leading off, hitting .219, takes ball one.
And that was a little surprising to me. It's kind of like maybe when you have a street fight with your buddy. Once you get together, you smile a little and laugh it off. But there were no exchanges of any kind at home plate.
And no smiles. Ground ball hit to the right side and under the glove of Jeffries into right field. So Winningham is aboard. It'll be a base hit.
It's a base hit, but an early example again of the Mets' problems. Oftentimes the pitching feels the brunt of it, but that's a ball that should have been caught. You see Greg Jeffries looking at the ground, and I think he'd admit that. It is scored a base hit, but it should have been fielded.
Jeffries, of course, has been in the eye of the hurricane. Throw to first base as Winningham dives back. Winningham, by the way, originally with the Mets, then traded to Montreal. Has stolen 4 bases this year, but has also been caught 4 times.
If Lou Piniella had his wishes, he'd rather have Winningham on the bench and young Reggie Sanders in the lineup. Played last night, injured his shoulder, and Winningham's knee really not 100% yet, but he has to play. They don't have anybody else.
And Morris, for that matter, also has a left shoulder injury and has really not been able to provide any power, even though he has hit for average all season. Outfield is not deep in center or in left field for Morris. And he tries to bunt. Fouled off. Strike one.
Up there among the league leaders, Tony Gwynn. You could about rubber stamp that name in at the top of the National League batting leaders, and a couple of surprises there. Felix Jose and Terry Pendleton.
Kind of an acquisition Terry Pendleton has meant to the Atlanta Braves. A lot of people thought they'd be out of the picture by now, but they look like they're going to be in the picture to the very end. And who knows? Again, Whitehurst goes over to first base. The Reds, as we said, 9 games out as we check with Sam Perlazzo, the third base coach. And over at first is the great Tony Perez. Sure headed for the Hall of Fame. 1 ball and 1 strike. As of yesterday, the Reds were 10 games out of first place, and that was their biggest deficit of the year.
Yeah, if they're going to make any, if you don't get within a half a dozen games by the 1st of September, you better start making plans for next year. There's only one team that's ever done it, and that's the '78 Yankees.
Jeffries is shaded over to second, and with Magadan holding the runner on, pretty good hole in the right side for Morris.
Yeah, it gives him a big hole there holding Winningham, as you mentioned. And right now, the slow pace that Whitehurst is setting only averages about 5+ innings per start, keeping his fielders on their heels right now.
1 ball and 1 strike. Your philosophy here of a pitcher like Whitehurst who wants to get in a groove, spending a lot of time with Winningham, worried about the hit and run or the stolen base.
Yeah, the guy that can do the damage is the guy up in the batter's box, and you respect the runner. You hold him, change your count, a couple of things, but don't let him take over and take over the whole game. That affects the entire team out there in the field.
Runner doesn't go, and the pitch swung on and missed. Good fastball by Wally Whitehurst.
Saw the bunt attempt, and also Jeffrey shaded a little closer to second base, Elster in the hole, and that's the reason, because Morris rather hits the ball to left field consistently.
And you figure Whitehurst will be throwing mostly fastballs to Morris. He has an outstanding curve. And Morris might be able to pull the breaking ball. 1 ball and 2 strikes to count with nobody out. There's a bounding ball to the Magadan. He goes over to Elster for the force to throw to first to Whitehurst, covering not in time. So despite the pitch outside, Morris Tried to hit it to the right side of the infield, and he did. He moves the runner into scoring position with 1 away, or actually the force out, and he's on at first with 1 out.
You mentioned he can pull the breaking ball, and that's what goes through a hitter's mind in a situation like that. If you're Hal Morris, you say, boy, I got that nice big hole over there between first and second. Why don't I try to pull it, which he did, and oftentimes you end up with a weak ground ball and a force out.
Here's Barry Larkin, who's hitting .294 with 17 homers and 51 runs batted in. But amazingly enough, could become the first National League shortstop since Ernie Banks to have a slugging average of .500 or better. And when you talk to anyone, wow, compare him to Ernie Banks, that's
pretty lofty company,
yeah.
Isn't it? He's putting up some great numbers the second half, improving what he said in the first half. He wants to be a part of a winning team.
Fastball, air deep to left field. McReynolds looking up, and this ball is gone. A home run for Barry Larkin, his 18th of the year. And the Reds jump off to a 2-0 lead here in the top of the first inning.
Adds to the slugging percentage. Look at the pitch. About belt high. And sinker ball pitchers that throw pitches around belt high, this is where most of them end up. Wally Whitehurst knows to be effective, that pitch has to be down around the knees, and at this time of the year, Barry Larkin is not missing any pitcher's mistakes.
And his first home run since the 4th of August. Here's Paul O'Neill, who leads the Reds in round trippers with 23, and he takes a strike. So the Reds lead at 2-0 here in the first inning. O'Neill takes a breaking ball outside, 1-1. Looking for his 100th hit on the season. Curveball misses outside, and it's 2-1.
You can see Whitehurst, who has had a lot of problems in the early innings, is a kind of a nibbling pitcher here in the first inning.
Now behind 3 balls and a strike.
Another example right there. A lot of your outstanding winning pitchers come out of the chute, and it's here it is, boys. See if you can hit it. They get through those first couple innings in a hurry.
There's a line drive. It'll be a base hit. Let's see if it goes all the way to the wall, and it does. O'Neill will go into second base, standing with a double. So the Reds are tagging Wally Whitehurst. A leadoff single by Winningham. Home run by Larkin to make it 2-0, and now O'Neill.
Well, I said when I saw Paul O'Neill in the Instructional League in the mid-'80s, this kid's got the purest, sweetest swing I've seen since Ted Williams. That might be a bit of a stretch in some baseball followers' eyes, but I think this year he's proving the power hitter that they always thought he would be. Extra base production.
Mel Stottlemyre, the Mets pitching coach, quickly out to the mound to talk to Whitehurst. Mackie Sasser, the catcher.
Getting back to that.
Has been on a tear since the All-Star break. Hitting .353. 1 out. Paul O'Neill is on at second, and a fastball on the outside edge, strike 1. Sabo is a scrapper. Big news recently, despite his great hitting since the All-Star break, getting into that dugout skirmish with Jose Rijo, the Reds pitcher today. Broken bat looper into short left field. Going out is Elster, and it's off his glove. Going to third is O'Neill, and he is out at third base. And moving into second base is Chris Sabo.
You can't blame him. Elster either did not see the ball or just closed the glove too quickly, but then O'Neill had too much of his body going back towards second. And instead of saying, I better stay there, he got aggressive on the base pass, tried to make it to third. He's an easy out.
An error charged, of course, to Elster, and O'Neill is out. Elster to Howard Johnson. There are 2 outs. The Reds have a runner in scoring position. The Mets avoided real serious trouble on that play. And here is Glenn Braggs, who takes a fastball, strike 1. Braggs has had a good second half of the year. It's been awfully aggressive. Lou Piniella appreciates his hustle. Gives the Reds good power. Fouls off a curveball, and it's 0-2. Already we have seen some of the Mets' problems. The ball that got under the glove of Jeffries that was ruled a hit that should have been made, and of course the error by Elster.
It's you know, sometimes you can say, well, it's been raining, it's loose footing and all those things, but this is a big leagues. You know, you got guys up here because you think they could catch those balls.
The 0-2. He jammed him, and a pop-up in foul territory. Johnson and Elster near the barrier, and Howard Johnson had a shot at it, and the ball might have ticked off his glove and a fan as well. It'll go as no play.
Exactly what happened. I think Hojo, he plays it properly, but right there, watch him slip. He slips down off when he's on his knees. That ball's fair game for the fans. If a player reaches into the stands and a fan interferes, the umpire will not make the out call. If the fan reaches into the field to play, it would be. And Johnson had a legitimate shot at that, but would have been a tough play.
Down remains no balls and 2 strikes to Glenn Braggs. Lays off the curve. First base umpire Dutch Rennert says that Braggs did not go around on the pitch. 1-2. The Mets starters, and people brag about the great starting pitchers, but look at the records since the All-Star break, with the exception of Doc Gooden.
Doc Gooden has had a good second half. Oftentimes, I think we're looking for all of the rest of those Mets pitchers to pitch back to their career years in baseball. They haven't been able to do it.
Fastball fouled back. Gooden had to leave the game against the Cardinals the other night, Thursday, because of the tightness in his shoulder. The Mets won their 2nd straight shutout, and it's good news for Doc Gooden because it was just tightness and nothing more serious than that.
Talking a little pitching there. You can see him moving the wrist. You can always tell those pitchers on the bench. They're flipping that wrist. Hey, a little curve here, sink the ball there. Trying to figure out how to get hitters like Glenn Braggs out.
Runner at second is Sabo. Curveball. 2 balls and 2 strikes.
Well, if you saw Glenn Braggs in the offseason, I mean, this guy is a weightlifter like a lot of ball players. Not too much during the season, but what a strong specimen. And this is one of the advantage of strength. Watch him hold up. Only guys with strong arms can do that. A normal man, that bat head is right through, and that's a swing.
Here's the 2-2 pitch. Curveball, and Braggs strikes. Keith Miller leading off. Dave Magadan batting second. Kevin McReynolds is third. Howard Johnson, the cleanup batter. Mackey Sasser, followed by Greg Jeffries, Darrell Boston, Kevin Elster, the shortstop, Wally Whitehurst pitching for the Mets.
And the Cincinnati Reds will take that 2-run lead to the field. And in the outfield, they'll have Glenn Braggs in left. Herm Winningham is going to fill in for young Reggie Sanders, who would have played today, injured his shoulder last night. He's in center. Paul O'Neill in right. Around the infield, Chris Sabo, Barry Larkin, Mariano Duncan at second base, Hal Morris at first. Jeff Reed will do the catching, and he'll catch Jose Rijo. Boy, talk about a dominant pitcher. Rijo, some time on the disabled list because of the ankle injury, but look at the hits per inning, very few walks, a dominant hard slider that he can throw pitch after pitch.
And when he was healthy last year, he had an outstanding year, was the MVP of the World Series, 3-0 in 4 postseason starts, and he's facing Keith Miller, the leadoff batter for the Mets here, with the Reds leading 2-0. First pitch, down low, ball 1, and now Dutch Rennert says that caught the plate, and Miller went around on the swing, so it's strike 1. Rijo making his 22nd start of the season. Fastball bounced to Sabo, who is playing in at third, and Miller's retired, 1 gone. Want to talk about history? We're looking at the last 50 years in the National League.
You know, you don't realize, because Rijo came up at the age of 18 with the Yankees, that many starts in the National League. He's still only 26, and look at that incredible earned run average and the people that he has bested.
Dave Magadan hitting .260. Takes strike 1. Magadan has hit .318 in nearly the last month. Fouls it off for strike 2, but he's had a good eye and draws a lot of bases on balls.
And that reflects that, along with some other good leadoff hitters as well as power hitters. Freddie McGriff, power hitter, gets a lot of walks. Butler, the Shields, the little guys still with good eyes.
One ball and 2 strikes. On deck is Kevin McReynolds. Mets recently ended an 11-game losing streak with back-to-back shutouts before losing last night in the series opener. Earlier, the Mets had won 10 straight games, but really didn't dent the lead of the Pittsburgh Pirates, and that probably affected them negatively as much as anything.
Yeah, when you win and you don't gain any ground, very depressing.
Lays off the pitch, up and away. Count is full, 3-2.
And like the player that he replaced, Keith Hernandez, Magadan will hit the ball all around. A lot of base hits to left. Can't play him one direction.
Out of play, and the count remains 3-2.
Those are the toughest kind of hitters to pitch to as a pitcher also. As a guy, if a guy's primarily a pull hitter, you can throw him a lot of off-speed stuff, get him out in front. But the guys that could wait like Magadan are the more difficult to pitch to.
Swing and a miss, strike 3. So Magadan goes down on a Rijo heater.
Well, I'll say a heater. He's known for that great slider. It is that little giddy up, knee-high outside corner. And notice with just the first 2 hitters, the much more aggressive approach that Rijo has taken as opposed to Wally Whitehurst.
2 down in the first. Here's Kevin McReynolds. His numbers are not where a lot of the Mets people think there should be. 12 homers and 59 runs batted in. McReynolds has not hit fewer than 20 home runs since 1985 with the San Diego Padres. Leads the club with base hits, though. Fouls this one off, and 1-1 is the count to Kevin McReynolds.
He's got the ability, and I think that's what people look for, the ability to have more power production. He's been a great base stealer percentage-wise in his career.
Two balls and a strike. Reds leading it 2-0, scoring 2 in the top of the first inning on Barry Larkin's home run. Ground ball hit to shortstop, and Barry Larkin is there, and a 1-2-3 inning for Jose Rijo. So we've completed 1 at Shea Stadium on an overcast afternoon. It's the Reds 2 and the Mets 0.
Good times with friends, hey, they're special. Sometimes you wish they were
under 500. Jeff Reed, the Reds catcher, hitting .275, leading off in the second inning against Wally Whitehurst. 1-1 the count.
Those records since the All-Star break reflect the sport that you did a lot of basketball. What did coaches say? Hey, boys, important when you come out of halftime, the first few minutes of the second half.
That's right.
And the same is true in baseball after the All-Star break.
Fastball misses. 2 balls and 1 strike to Reed. Reed and Joe Oliver have been virtually alternating behind the plate for the Reds, and you see early scores. The Tigers have jumped out ahead of Seattle 2-0. Fastball on the inside corner. 2-2 the count to Reed. The sun isn't out, but that doesn't bother these fellas.
Last night's winning starting pitcher, Tom Browning, Rob Dibble, Carmelo Martinez.
Fastball line to left field, but Kevin McReynolds playing Reed perfectly, makes the catch for the first out. Well, talking about umpires, and we have with Gary Darling and Lou Piniella a report coming out that 2 umpires were placed on probation by Commissioner Fay Vincent. Not too much detail beyond that, and last night I had a chance to ask Commissioner Vincent about that story.
Well, as I told you earlier, Dick, from my point of view, I'm not going to confirm or deny the report. I believe that off-field activities by umpires or by other baseball people should not require disclosure. And people say, well, how come there are some disclosures made and not others? if the circumstance comes to me in a public way, there's not much I can do about keeping it confidential. On-field issues, I think we have debates about whether on-field issues involving umpires should be made public, and I believe they should not. I think it would undermine their position and their credibility and their ability to function.
Commissioner Fay Vincent, and of course, in a lot of ways, you know, you have to agree because, you know, the public right to know doesn't cover everything.
Puts them in it's a sensitive subject. The very fact that we're talking about it is sad because, as any umpire will tell you, when they're doing a good job, you don't even know they're there. But they've been in the headlines so much lately that there obviously is problems that have to be dealt with.
Jose Rijo, who is hitting .234, pretty good hitting pitcher, lines it foul off the box seat railing for strike 2. You saw Mariano Duncan bounce out to Howard Johnson for the second out here in the Reds' second inning. And of course, a lot of this has to do with the bad blood, if you want to call it that, between the Players Association and the Umpires Association. Rijo grounds a base hit past Kevin Elster. I tell you, he doesn't mind taking his hacks up there, does he?
Good athlete. Breaking pitch, a little broken bat, but he covered the plate and got the barrel on it out of Elster's reach.
That's the 4th hit already against Wally Whitehurst, and we're only in the second inning. Rijo decides that he will run the bases without a jacket.
Good for him. I mean, it's summertime. This pitcher's wearing jackets is the most overrated thing.
Fastball to Herm Winningham, taken for a strike. Winningham singled to right field his first time up and came around on Barry Larkin's 18th home run of the year. That's where we are. The Reds leading it 2-0 in the top of inning number 2. Magadan playing behind Rijo, and a line drive slapped to the left side and through. So Winningham, using all of the field, gets his second hit in as many innings. Rijo stops at second. So Wally Whitehurst, struggling in a big way here in the second inning, has already given up 5 hits.
Again, a sinker that's about thigh high, and that's the difference between a ground ball out and a base hit. And Winningham, last-minute replacement for the injured Reggie Sanders, taking the proper approach against Whitehurst, not trying to pull that sinking fastball, to shoot it the other way.
Here's Hal Morris. 0 for 1. There's a curveball, and it's just low. 1 ball and no strikes. Whitehurst used as a relief pitcher predominantly until this year. He's been in and out of the rotation, and when Darling was traded to Montreal, as Jim mentioned, he got his opportunity. And since the deal, Ron Darling is 3-2 with the Oakland A's, who acquired him from Montreal, and Whitehurst still looking for his first victory since the trade.
Probably reflects a little of the pressure that Wally Whitehurst takes to the mound, proving that he deserves that spot in the rotation.
Morris fouls it off upstairs.
You know, when you look at his stuff, he's got a good sinking fastball, throws more ground balls than any pitcher in baseball. He's got a good overhand curve. His control, only Kevin Tapani of the Minnesota Twins has fewer walks per 9 innings in the last couple of years. So the stuff and the control is there. He's just not been able to put it in the right spots, have the confidence, really the conviction to go at hitters in a more aggressive manner.
Rijo is on at second base. Runner at first is Winningham. All with 2 out here in the second inning. And a ground ball wrapped up the middle, a base hit. They're going to wave Rijo home. Darrell Boston will throw to third base. The run scores, and it's a 3-0 lead for the Reds. And the Bluebirds are out in force today as Hal Morris drives in his 46th run of the season.
Well, that's to be expected. They're looking for big things here in Shea Stadium, but from Wally Whitehurst's standpoint, you're saying, hey, I got a broken bat ground ball. I got a ground ball from Rijo. So really the only line drive hit was Winningham, but he can't get one to go at people. And you put enough base runners out there, a good hitting team like the Reds going to cash it in. It
is now 3-0 on 6 hits. And And here's Barry Larkin, who hit his 18th home run of the year in the first inning. Breaking ball is outside, ball one. Larkin now with 53 runs batted in. When Larkin and Bill Doran were out with injuries early in the year, Cincinnati lost a lot of their strength up the middle, and that was a big part of their tailspin. Fastball is low, 2-0.
You can miss a Barry Larkin or an Eric Davis for a short period of time, and Lou Piniella was referring to that last night. You can get by without an outfielder or an infielder for a short period of time. Very seldom without starting pitchers for a long period of time. That's what's plagued the Reds.
Morris the runner at first. Winningham is on at second, and there's a line drive to left field. McReynolds comes in, short hops it. Another run will score. The throw to third, and Morris is going to be safe. Throw to second base. In at second safely is Barry Larkin. And the Reds now are up 4-0. Larkin with his 54th RBI and his third of this game.
All started by a little two-out, nobody on single by Jose Rijo. McReynolds does a good job keeping the ball in front of him. And the throw right there a little bit late, and on that late throw, Larkin alertly moves into scoring position.
It'll be a base hit, a single by Larkin, and an RBI. Move to second on the throw. Now they're going to walk Paul O'Neill intentionally with first base open to pitch to the right-handed hitting Chris Sabo. Now the Mets start bullpen activity as Chris Sabo, who is safe on an error, takes ball one outside. That's Jeff Innes, who's been a workhorse as of late for the Mets. So a chance for Sabo to really give Jose Rijo a big cushion here early in this game. And he pops it up. 10 in a row on the road. That equaled the longest winless road trip in National League history. But look at the all-time streak. Were you on that club?
Those pesky Nats. Pesky Nats lost 15 in a row in '59.
Howard Johnson takes ball one. You mean you were part of a big losing streak?
That was my debut. I'll never forget Russ Kemmerer, who lost the 14th game, the starting pitcher, coming up the stairs at the clubhouse.
You had a chance, though, as the record showed, the rest of your career. Howard Johnson takes a strike, 1-1. Second in the National League with 26 home runs and third with 81 runs batted in. He's provided the power that the Mets had gotten from Darryl Strawberry, who is now with the Dodgers. And of course everyone applauded that move, saying that the Mets would be better off without Darryl Strawberry, but the straw has been on a tear for the Dodgers.
He's comfortable in his new surroundings now, and ideal timing for the Dodgers, who will have to have Strawberry's bat to hold off those Braves to where they're playing. 1-2
strikes to the switch hitting Hojo. Lays off the breaking ball, but it's called strike 3, and Rijo chalks up his second strikeout. One away here in the bottom of the second inning. Ball for a strike. The Mets have been using him in right field as well. He has started 7 games, and of course earlier he had the problem in just getting the ball tossed back to the pitcher. But he's got a good bat. 1-1.
Back to that losing streak we went through with the pesky Nats. Walter Boom Boom Beck was our pitching coach then, but we had some very harsh words for the starter of game 1, Russ Kemmerer, scolding the young kid.
Sasser lifts it in the air. Sabo chases it in foul ground, and he's saying to himself, I had a chance to catch that one as it fell between the tarp and the barrier.
Yeah, earlier Johnson went up on the tarp and into the stands, couldn't get it. Sabo sort of tentative right near the tarp, reaching for it, never does get to the railing.
One and two the count to Mackey Sasser. One out here in the second. A pair of runs in the first 2 frames. Fastball, and it's popped up. Sabo makes the play, 2 down. Rijo very effective as the opponent's batting average against him reflects at just 2.
Starting pitcher like Rijo, the opposition does not get many opportunities to score runs against him.
He's won 8 of his last 10 decisions. Last year he was 6-1 down the stretch for the eventual world champions. Greg Jeffries takes ball one. The switch hitting second baseman is hitting 272 as a left-handed batter. Ball strike, 1-1. Rio also has not allowed a home run in his last 60 innings of work. In for the strike, 1-2 to Jeffries.
So Jeffries didn't like the call, but now that Rijo, who is throwing a lot of strikes, is around the plate, you're going to get the benefit of any of those borderline calls as a pitcher.
Ground ball, roll to Morris at first base. He'll outrace Jeffries to the bag, and another 1-2-3 inning for Jose Rijo. And we've completed 2 here at Sir and Pat O'Brien, with news, analysis, live stadium reports, and behind-the-scenes story. The NFL Today, the last word before kickoff. Coming around to the gridiron season again, Mr. K.
I think that that lady on the left, Leslie Visser, last word, very appropriate phrase there. She has the last word.
In our household,
Yeah.
she does. I can tell you that. Glenn Bragg struck out his first time up. No balls and 2 strikes the count to Glenn. Wally Whitehurst still working. Curveball is lined over the glove of Howard Johnson into left field. So the tattoo goes on for the Cincinnati Reds. They have wrapped out 8 hits against Whitehurst in 2+ innings.
A top prospect with the Milwaukee Brewers, Glenn Braggs, never really blossomed as a player, but what a great swing there. Waits on the curveball, and you could see the bat speed and the strength of Glenn Braggs.
Left field, his first trip. Getting back is Braggs, who has 11 stolen bases in 14 attempts this year. Activity in the Mets bullpen. You can see it beyond the right field fence. Jeff Innes was working earlier, but now we have the left-hander Pete Shurik, as Reed takes ball 1, 1-0.
Good live arm.
Who does Pete Shurik remind you of
Well,
as you take a long look at him?
They kid him about that. I don't know if I'd want to be blessed with that liability.
They call him Young Kitty, huh?
John Franco telling him yesterday, come meet your dad. I said, no, that's not his dad, just his older brother. But the Mets are high on that young man. Good live arm, good stuff, as they say, and just try to blend them in maybe to games like this and give them an opportunity to get some innings in on the big league level.
You can only hope he has nearly the career you did. I think he'd take it right now, wouldn't he, and run. 1-0 the count. And there goes the runner, and a line drive, base hit. So the hit and run was on, and Braggs is going to make it all the way to third base as Reed gets a base hit. 9 hits for the Cincinnati Reds. Runners at the corners with nobody out here in the 3rd inning.
Well, when you look at the Reds today, you're seeing a world championship performance. Now, this is perfect execution. Braggs on the run. Reed knows that hole is open between base.
Nobody out. Mariano Duncan, who rounded to third base his first time up, with a long look at third base coach Sam Perlazzo. It's 4-0 already. The Reds lead. They've 9 base hits and threatening for more here in the 3rd. Curveball hit up high, 1-0. There's a fastball, base hit to right field. Braggs will score. Reed will stop at second. Duncan drives in the 5th Cincinnati run. And that should be all for Wally Whitehurst. Pitcher spot coming up next, but 10 hits already against Whitehurst.
That one down in the strike zone, down around the knees, but with a man on first, Duncan takes that proper approach. He said, I'm just going to try to slap it to right field. Even if I hit it on the ground, I'll get a run in. And there's Buddy.
And here's the reaction to him. Other outstanding relief pitchers.
Yeah, they say Eckersley's having an off year. He'll never duplicate what he did last year, but still leading the American League.
Jose Rijo, who singled to center field and scored a run. Nobody out. Runners at first and second looking for the bunt. And the pitch is taken for strike. Wally Whitehurst giving up 10 hits in 2 innings, facing 3 batters here in the third, and 5 runs, and is responsible for the runners at first and second.
Mets continue to have problems with the exception of Doc Gooden with their starting pitcher.
Swinging away, and Rijo lines it just above the Mets dugout. 0-2.
Shows you the confidence Lou Piniella has in Rijo's athletic ability. You know, an obvious bunt situation, and he let him turn around and slap at the ball. Casey Stengel, the late Met manager, used to call that the butcher boy. Turn around and butcher boy the ball, chop down on it, and slap it toward that first baseman rushing in toward you.
Squaring around the bunt, and it's called strike 3. So Rijo.
Real situation for him to work into a game like this, down 5 runs, very relaxed situation to log some big league innings and get a little confidence.
He's 6'5". Was 11-4 in Double-A last season. Now facing Herm Winningham, who has singled in the first, singled in the second, and a chance here in the third. Here's a high chopper, could be trouble. Winningham will beat out another infield hit. So Winningham is now 3 for 3 with hits in the first 3 innings. And bases are loaded as Reed goes to third and Duncan to second.
You can see in the picture Winningham with the slight limp with that injured knee, but still legs out. Nothing Jefferies can do about that ball. Once it gets by the pitcher in the soft grass, Winningham has enough speed to beat that out easily.
And now with 1 out, the bases are loaded, and Hal Morris and Barry Larkin coming up for the Reds, who lead it 5-0. They won 6-1 last night at the start of this series. Morris is 1 for 2 with a base hit and an RBI. He chops this one foul off to the right, strike 1. Now the Reds are 9 games out coming into today's action. They still have 2 games against the Dodgers and 4 against the Atlanta Braves. No team has ever overcome a deficit of more than 7.5 games at the end of August to win a league or division title. So they, I think, would like to get it even closer going to that last month.
You see them today and you wonder, how in the world are these guys 3 games under 500? Well, one of the reasons Rijo can't pitch every day, neither can Browning.
Here's the 0-1. Inside. Jeff Reed is at third base. Mariano Duncan at second. Herm Winningham on at first base. And you said it earlier, and Lou Piniella and his coaches agreed. Injuries to the pitching staff did this club in, at least to this time. Pitches outside, 2 balls and a strike. And the injuries, and you'll see a lot of them are pitchers.
Now you look at Scudder, Rijo, Hammond, Charlton was in the starting rotation. All altered that pitching staff.
Schurek's 2-1 pitch to Morris is a curveball on the inside corner. Little off-speed breaking ball that fooled Hal, and the count is 2-2.
The Charlton's name on the disabled list, that's really one of the main reasons that the Reds have suffered in the starting rotation. Charlton and Randy Myers were a big part of that bullpen last year. They've been forced into the starting rotation, and middle relief has been a weak spot for the Reds without them there.
2-2 pitch is lifted in the air to right center field. Reed goes back to tag up. Miller with the catch. Here comes Jeff Reed. The throw to the plate is offline, and scoring is Jeff Reed with the 6th Cincinnati run. And Hal Morris with his second RBI of the game. Now with 47 on the season. 2 away.
Morris went down and hit a breaking ball. Miller gets himself in good position. Air mails the throw a little bit, but Watch Reed right here, very subtly. See, he's a catcher. He's looking right at Mackey Sasser. Miller in good position to make the throw. And Reed looks at Mackey Sasser and says, aha, he's moving outside. I step inside. Reading the throw and able to get in without a slide.
6-0, the Reds lead here in the third inning with 2 out, runners at first and second. And Barry Larkin 2 for 2 with a home run and a single. He's knocked in 3 runs already. He looks at a breaking ball for strike 1. 11 hits, 10 of them off of Wally Whitehurst, who came out of the game here in the third inning. After the first 3 Reds reached base. Breaking ball in for the strike. Here is Larkin's 2-run homer that got the Reds soft and winging in the first inning.
Thigh-high sinking fastballs.
No chance for McReynolds. Number 18 for Barry Larkin. Schuring's 0-2 pitch. And the ball gets away from Sasser, and the runners will advance. This may go as a pass ball. We'll check. Now runners are in.
Wow, this ball's got a little cutting, a little sliding action on it. It will go as a pass ball. I'm not too sure that there was a mix-up on the signs. It looked like Sasser was looking for the fastball, and Schuring threw the slider.
Count is 1-2, but now the Reds have runners at second and third with 2 outs. Ball is outside. 2 balls and 2 strikes. Last year the Reds won the World Championship, sweeping the Oakland A's 4 straight. They won 91 games. No team ever won a World Championship in a 4-0 sweep with fewer regular season victories than the Reds achieved last year, but they won it. Larkin stays alive, getting a piece of that curveball.
Not afraid to call that curveball from short. He's got a good overhand hook, and I'm sure with that gangly motion, a little bit difficult for hitters to pick up the difference in the speed from his good live fastball and that slow overhand curve.
Crowd and the sunshine now showing after early morning rain here in the New York metropolitan area. And it's rained on the Mets. All those base hits by the Reds, 11 of them. Here's the 2-2 pitch. Larkin fouls it off to the right. You know, you talk about the injured players and the suspensions. We saw some of the skirmishes in the opening of our broadcast. Rob Dibble, of course, his suspensions haven't helped the team. And what about Eric Davis and his problems staying healthy, which has plagued him throughout his career?
All going back to the apparently the World Series injury.
There's a fly ball hit to center field. Darrell Boston moving over to right center makes the catch, and the Reds leave the bases loaded again, but they get 2 more runs and will return to Shea Stadium after the MetLife blimp. For today's action are Corky Bellinger and Steve Adams. And Darrell Boston, the leadoff hitter in the bottom of the third inning against Jose Rijo, fouls it off for strike 1. Boston is hitting .256, 1 homer and 13 runs batted in. He's hit over 300 when he's been a starter for the Mets.
Base running, not one of the Mets' strong suits. This guy's probably their best.
1 ball and 1 strike. He has started in all 3 outfield positions, but most of his starts have been in center field. 2 balls and 1 strike. Cecil Fielder with a 2-run homer, and the Tigers. How do you figure the Detroit Tigers?
Well, that guy's name on the bottom is probably one very strong
answers that.
Cecil Fielder. Right. Yeah.
Pitches low, 3 balls and 1 strike. But you know, you look at the Tigers in a low batting average. Their opponents are hitting a tremendous amount. Their pitching hasn't been overpowering.
Team batting average, probably one of the many overrated statistics in this game. Team batting average.
In for the strike, 3-2. But here they are. They're a crazy quilt team, the Detroit Tigers. Hard to figure out.
What they will do is hammer mediocre pitching or good pitching on days that they are mediocre. They got too many guys in that lineup that can handle mistakes, like Rob Deere. Fielder can hit the mistakes and the good pitches. Mickey Tettleton.
Tettleton at his 35th. Swing and a miss, strike 3. So Boston strikes out. That is the third strikeout for Rijo. And the Tigers are leading rich clubs.
That could make it a little tough for him.
Kevin Elster up for the first time, takes a fastball for a strike. Elster batting .230, 6 homers and 30 runs batted in. He's hitting well below what the Mets expect of him, but he's had shoulder problems as he takes a ball 1-1.
Yeah, the Blue Jays are going to face the White Sox and the Twins and the A's, all teams that are in a pennant race, so they're not going to see any minor league pitchers called up in September that they're going to face or anything like that. Every game is going to be a tough game for them.
1 out, 1-1 pitch to Elster. Fastball, strike 2. On the other hand, you look at the Tigers, Jim, and they've got to play Eastern clubs, but they have home-and-home series against the Indians and the Orioles in the last couple of weeks of the year.
And take advantage of pitching staffs that are not as good as the American League West.
And Elster looks at strike 3 right down the middle. So strikeout number 4 for Rijo.
Boy, if you like pitching, you have to enjoy watching Jose Rijo. I'll guarantee you, he doesn't even know who's in the batter's box. All he's cognizant of is Jeff Reed's glider.
And Pete Schurik with 2 out. Fouls it off. So Rijo has struck out 4 of the first 8 batters that he's faced. When he's healthy as he was last year, where he had that shoulder injury, and then finally it worked its way out after the All-Star break, and is strong last season. Good fastball, swung on and missed.
Ankle is, those not familiar with his injury, broken ankle sliding into second base. That's still a little tender. But it's coming back and not affecting his pitching motion, so there's no extra strain on the arm.
Here's the 0-2 pitch to Schurik. Wastes that one. Schurik can be a respectable hitter. He had a memorable duel batting against Ramon Martinez in a Dodger-Mets series. Stays alive and fouls it at the plate.
Going back to that Detroit and that American League East race, Detroit is, they've got those kind of lineup, that against Baltimore and Cleveland in September, they'll put so much pressure on Toronto. The Blue Jays have no one to blame but themselves. They had that race right in the palm of their hand.
It's going to put a lot of questions on the shoulders of Cito Gaston if he doesn't pull it off this time. Because a lot of people have expected the Blue Jays to do a lot better the last couple of years than they had with the talent.
Yeah, they traded away a lot of power in Bell and Freddie McGriff, a good player, and Tony Fernandez, so they don't have the run scoring ability. They've got a better team in the field and good pitching.
Schurik strikes out, so Rijo retires the first 9 batters he faces and strikes out 5 of them. And after 3, Neal with a double and a walk. He was passed intentionally in the second inning. Lunges for that fastball and misses 1-1.
Yeah, it'll be a good test. I mean, O'Neill has that great stroke, but against a left-hander like Schurik, you're just bound to give a little ground like he did on that pitch. Body wants to pull toward first base.
Good breaking ball. That's about as good a curveball as you'll find from a young
Yeah,
kid.
he's on his way to a Lord Charles. That's a little step up from Uncle Charlie.
Lays off the curveball, and it's 2-2. O'Neill last year set a career high with 16 home runs, which he had matched from 1988. He's got 23 to lead the club. He's knocked in 70 runs. His career high is 78 last year, so Paul O'Neill continues to be a rising star in the National League. Hasn't done as well against lefties as you would expect, but draws the walk here to start the 4th inning. That is the first walk issued by Pete Schurik.
See so many players coming out of college and out of Double-A baseball getting to the major leagues, and sometimes their second or third year, like Frank Thomas of the White Sox, and oftentimes organizations look for big production immediately. It takes some guys a little bit longer. Paul O'Neill
to left field, and McReynolds comes in to make the catch to retire the side. So we played 3.5 here at Shea Stadium. The Reds look
kind of fire when you're sitting in that chair right now, the Mets manager.
Well, that's the Bud Harrelson that the Met fans remember. And of course, Frank Cashin, the Mets general manager, says no decision will be made till after the season. The Buddy watch has kind of died down, I believe, now. Keith Miller, leading off the 4th inning, takes a strike. Jose Rijo has struck out 5 of the first 9 batters he's disposed of. Miller, one of the ones he did not strike out, grounded to third. 1 ball and 1 strike. Well, Darryl Strawberry was the right fielder in waiting for so many years.
Not as much production from the Mets right fielders without the straw man. Goes a little deeper than that.
A lot deeper. Foul ball off to the right. Of course, the Mets had hoped to have more of a running game with Vince Coleman, who's now on the disabled list, and he really has not filled the bill when you look at Vince's problems, injury-wise and production-wise.
Now, they thought they could change the complexion of the team, a little more speed, but beyond those numbers comparing Strawberry, he affects the kind of pitchers that Howard Johnson and Kevin McReynolds get in the lineup when he's there.
Met fans looking for a rally here as Miller takes a fastball inside. 2 balls and 2 strikes. Miller will be followed by Magadan and Kevin McReynolds. Mets trying to get something going here and get back in the game to please their capacity crowd fans as pitch is sliced to right field, and Paul O'Neill was playing Miller perfectly toward the line in right and was able to make that catch for out number 1.
We talked about the Red starters, Dick, and now look at the records. They have the same number of wins.
Past at least this year ago. Magadan takes a strike. He struck out his first time up.
But the bullpen is a team within a team. They kind of feed off one another when they're together, and nobody did that better than Myers, Dibble, and Charlton last year.
They've used Myers as a starter. Trying to find the right combination. Kip Gross. Mo Sanford is the latest young pitcher to come aboard, and he was impressive early on against San Diego in his debut. Magadan way behind that pitch. Got a piece of it, fouls it into the mitt, 1 and 2.
What's impressive is when you see, now Dave Magadan is a 295 lifetime. This guy can hit. Howard Johnson can hit, and Rijo is confusing both of them. That gives you an idea of the dominant stuff that he has.
And you saw the graphic, no extra base hits for Magadan this month. They want that from him. Popped up. Calling for it is Mariano Duncan. And that'll be the second out. So Jose Rijo has retired the first 11 men in this ball game.
Quite the success he did in the PGA, but who thought he would? Tough to do it. Such competition out there week after week.
An exciting addition to the golf world with his long hitting, and hopefully he'll come back and approach that great performance.
The Cecil Fielder of the PGA Tour.
So in other words, he could be an MVP candidate.
Player of the year.
0-1 pitch, and McReynolds pops it up. Al Morris in foul territory makes the catch, and another 1-2-3 innings. So Rijo, with a big early lead, has mowed the Mets down. He's retired the first one from behind and finally beat Western clubs, which had hurt him earlier, has really given the Minnesota Twins an impressive situation at this stage.
They put themselves in a position to win because they kicked back Oakland, a recent road trip and a homestand. They've beaten Oakland, and they'll get an opportunity to do it against Chicago in September.
6-0 in favor of the Reds. Jeff Reed is 1 for 2 with a single, and he wraps this up the middle into center field for a base hit. That's hit number 12 for Cincinnati in the second against Pete Schurik. Mariano Duncan. He hasn't been healthy this year. He had such an outstanding year last season. Had the best year of his career. Hit .306. It's a high fly ball to left field. Kevin McReynolds coming over toward the line, and the wind affected that fly ball. Duncan's retired, 1 out, and Jeff Reed trots back to first base. We said before, and still 6 with the Atlanta Braves. But anytime you're 9 back at this stage, you're going to need some help.
Yeah, you put yourself in a position where you need help, and you also have to play about 800 baseball the rest of the way.
Here's Rijo, 1 for 2 with a base hit. Squares around the bunt and takes ball 1 low. Sam Perlazo flashing the sign to Jose Rijo. Shurik checks Reed, the runner at first, and there's the bunt. It's a good one. Howard Johnson can only look at second. The throw to first in time. Rijo with the sacrifice, and Jeff Reed is in scoring position. Howard Johnson covering. Want to have up among others because everyone but Chris Sabo on the Reds lineup has hit safely today is Herm Winningham, who singled in each of the first 3 innings. Last time up, he beat out an infield hit. Up high, ball 1. Shurik in relief of Wally Whitehurst. Well, right now we're going to leave you for a CBS News special report, and for that we send you to our New York studio to return in just a moment. At 6-0 as the Mets back in the bottom of the 5th inning. They have yet to get a base runner against Jose Rijo, who is retired the first 12 men he's faced. He has struck out 5 of them. Howard Johnson took a called 3rd strike his first trip up, and he grounds this one to the shortstop Barry Larkin, and there's 1 away. And if there's one thing that will keep you in a 6-0 game early, and that is the fact that your pitcher has not allowed a base runner, and that makes everyone extra alert.
Tells you a lot about this game. The reason it's different every day is the guy in the middle of the mound. Look at Rio's motion. That front leg always straight toward the target. Perfect pitching mechanics, and that great strength and live arm to go along with it. No herky-jerky motion.
1 out, and Mackey Sasser, who fouled out to Chris Sabo his first time up. Fouls it off the mask of the catcher Jeff Reed for a strike. A Met fan who's smiling.
I'll be watching that game across the street that we saw him in the blimp. That's right.
Or he hasn't looked at the standings
Not
lately.
happy with this one. Well, they demand a lot in this city. They treat you well when you do well, but they demand a great deal.
And then when you do well, they expect that you'll do well all the time.
Name candy bars after you, things like that. If you don't do well, they throw candy bars at you on occasion.
Well, you worked in this town.
I liked it. I told Buddy before, I liked it. It was a neat experience, playing for the Yankees. Greg Nettles said it best. He said, when you grow up as a kid, you want to either play big league baseball or join the circus. You play for the Yankees, you get to do both. And I enjoyed the year there, but I don't think the press here applied as much pressure from competition for stories as the press in Philadelphia.
Well, you can talk about media and everything and their response. Actually, players are not forced to say things if they're not the right things to say. And Sasser takes ball 2-2-2. No one's putting a gun to your head to make a comment that Greg Jeffries is not doing the job at second base, or I don't like what the manager's doing. Yeah. No one is forcing them to say that. Sasser fouls it back, and it's still 2-2.
And players say those things out of frustration, and the media feeds off that because we are in the information age, and so much is available by watching highlight shows. So a lot of the stories in print media are not just game stories, but they go beyond into the clubhouse.
Here's the 2-2 pitch. Ground ball foul. So when Jose Rijo and Chris Sabo scuffle in the dugout, you're going to see that on all the late news shows and all the sports programs.
Yeah, that's things that have been going on in baseball for years. There have always been those kind of conflicts.
Except this particular one, Jose Rijo said, we've reached the heights of embarrassivity when he and Chris Sabo went at it. That's what he said, embarrassivity.
And they went on to win 3 in a row after that.
That's right. Count is full to Sasser, 3-2, and the first time that Rijo has gone to the full count this afternoon. To right center field, and Herm Winningham goes back to make the catch. So there are 2 gone. But has won 10 of his last 13 decisions, looking for his 10th victory of this season. He won 8 of his last 10 to be exact. Facing Greg Jeffries with 2 out. 0 for 1. Setting up on the outside of the plate. The pitch just misses, ball 1. Ground ball to the right side, and that gets through for a base hit. And the first base runner and base hit for the Mets with 2 out in the 5th inning. After Jose Rijo had retired the first 14 he faced, Greg Jeffries is aboard.
Morris, because McReynolds is going to play shallower for Morris, and you see as he flips the sunglasses down, by the time he gets to the warning track, that ball shoots over his head. Shea Stadium has those swirling winds, so when the flag appears that the ball is not carrying, it actually is carrying.
Barry Larkin, the hitter, looks at a breaking ball low.
See, that's blowing in toward the first base line, toward the right field foul line, but yet the ball to left field is jumping and has that circular action.
Joe Namath loved it when he was playing quarterback for the Jets here at Shea Stadium, with the winds and the tricks they play. Larkin fouls it hard off one of the seats. Larkin 2 for 3, 2-run homer. Began the hit parade for the Reds in the first inning. He has driven in 3 runs and now has 54 on the season. 18 home runs for Larkin. You want to look at a throwback, a guy that will give you everything whenever he's in there, and the key to the title last year is the man up at the plate here.
I've got a couple of them on that Cincinnati team. Larkin as a position player, Tom Browning as a pitcher. And Larkin, I had a chance to talk to him and say, maybe out of frustration, you'd say, I'd rather play somewhere else if they're not committed to winning. But wouldn't you rather play in your hometown? He said, no, that wasn't out of frustration.
Well, that going back to the comment he made that maybe he wouldn't want to play there if the Reds are not going to make the necessary acquisitions to help the team. And, of course, a lot of that falls on the shoulders of Bob Quinn, the general manager. And the facts are that for whatever reason, the Reds really had not made any moves to try to stay in the race when they were in better contention.
Does not want to be a part of a team where money is going to dictate that you can't continue to keep a championship team together.
3 balls and 1 strike to Larkin. Leadoff runner Morris is at second. And now the Reds, threatening again, have runners at first and second and nobody out here in the 6th. That's the second walk issued by Pete Shurett.
Right fielder.
Tonight on CBS, our final preseason game before the NFL regular season starts next week, the Buffalo Bills, the AFC champions, against Paul O'Neill. Takes a breaking ball for ball 1. O'Neill's been on base 3 times by virtue of a double and 2 bases on balls. Mets have their bullpen up once more. O'Neill lifts a high foul fly that drifts out of play. We're getting close to the big month of September when the pennant races heat up, but even today the Mets, disappointing the fans, are having a grand time at Shea Stadium. Sellout crowd watching 2 teams that have not come up to the level as expected, but outstanding players.
Big league hardball.
O'Neill lines it foul, out of play again.
That's reason enough to come out to see teams like this. You know, we talked about all the stories off the field and the umpire conflicts that we'd really rather not deal with. But the reason you come out and fill up those seats is to watch those guys in those funny looking uniforms. That's what baseball's about, the players. The more we can put the attention this game will be.
1 ball, 2 strikes to O'Neill. Runners at first and second. Had to wait on that off-speed curveball. Pete Shorrock came in the 3rd inning after the first 3 Reds had reached base. He has not allowed a run and has given up 3 hits. So he's done the job in long relief. Morris, the runner at second, Larkin at first. Nobody out. Good curveball, and O'Neill gets called looking, and that's the 2nd strikeout for Shorrock. 1 away here in the 6th inning.
Third baseman, Chris Sabin.
In the National League, the Pirates get less publicity for being such an outstanding team, and the Braves get less respect. And these are the 2 teams that could well meet postseason play.
64 Cardinals. Remember the Phillies' big collapse. They lost 10 straight games down the stretch. Gene Mauch has nightmares over that one. They came back. Cardinals won. They were 7.5 back September 1st. And of course the 51 Giants with the greatest comeback of all time. Bud Harrelson coming to the mound. Jeff Innes has been warming up, and he'll get the call.
It got high hope.
And there's a guy they really need in there. And of course there's always Herschel Walker on display. Jeff Innes is the new pitcher for the Mets. 3rd of the afternoon. He faces Chris Sabo, and here comes a double steal attempt, and everyone is in there. So the Reds on the first pitch are successful on a double steal, and Howard Johnson is slow getting up, and he appears to be hurt. Innes' slider misses. 2 balls and no strike. Innes making his 53rd appearance. Tim Burke has been in 54 games, but a lot of those contests were with Montreal. So Innes been the workhorse.
What Buddy Harrelson did with Pete Shorrock is a real nice gesture. I mean, as much criticism as he gets. Here's a young kid trying to make the staff and establish himself. He took him out on a positive note after he struck out a left-hand hitter. You know, 2+ innings of real good relief. Let him leave on a note like that.
Infield is playing in for the Mets for a possible play at the plate, and Sabo hits a line drive to Darrell Boston, makes the catch. Hal Morris tags up. He'll score as the throw comes into the infield, and the Reds have added to their lead. It's now a 7-0 game, and for Sabo, RBI number 58 on the year.
Reds using all phases of the game of baseball today. That in the double steal put those runners in position to score on a sacrifice fly.
Different game when you're in front and you have a nice lead, isn't it? Here's Glenn Braggs, 1 for 3 with a base hit and a run scored today. Fastball, 0-1. Innes is 29 years old, native of Decatur, Illinois, now lives in Jupiter, Florida. Good sweeping breaking ball, 0-2.
Boy, that's where guys like Innes, those submariners, or from down at Port Arthur, they're so tough on right-hand hitters. That ball just keeps on moving away from you. You never catch up with it.
Center, there you see some of those outside courts where qualifying matches are taking place as we speak. 16 men's and women's qualifying matches today, and many of the seeded players are practicing as the U.S. Open gets underway starting on Monday. Of course, CBS Sports will bring you coverage of that U.S. Open. The Teen Spirit Challenge tomorrow at 2 o'clock Eastern Time, a CBS Sports tennis special. Defending U.S. Open champion Gabriela Sabatini battles teenage sensation Jennifer Capriati in a tune-up exhibition match tomorrow, 2 o'clock Eastern, right here on CBS. Chuck Carr, who was just called up by the Mets, pinch hitting for Jeff Innes. Carr is a switch hitter. 1 hit in 4 trips. Fastball. Didn't get that bat out there quick enough.
Shaking his head. He's having a good year down at Tidewater, but he saw that high blazer. He said, didn't see many of those down there.
Chuck Carr called from Tidewater for the second time this year. Just about a week ago. Fouls it off. Got his first major league hit against the Pirates on the day he was called up and was hitting 197 at the time of his recall. A base stealer, 27 stolen bases in 35 attempts in AAA. Takes a ball and it's now 3-2. Toronto has come back. They were trailing 3-1 and the Blue Jays now lead the Yankees 5-3. The Tigers lead Seattle 6-0 and they're getting a good pitching performance today from Frank Tanana. Chop foul.
Again, all the managers, Tony La Russa and Tom Kelly, the Minnesota Twins that I spoke with last week, Canelo all of them immediately will say starting pitching. Got to have that starting pitching. Yet the Tigers are winning it with offense, but what you just mentioned about Tanana, very deceptively, the Tigers have had some decent performances from guys like that.
Carr hits a line drive right at O'Neill, but he got good wood on that, and there's 2 down.
You know, not Cy Young Award type performances, but you take Bill Gullickson who give you 6-7 innings with just a few runs. Now Tanana, Walt Terrell, guys like that. And that's all you need with that lineup, but that's why they're there.
Well, you look at the Twins and their starting pitching. Scott Erickson, the 16-game winner in the American League to match Glavin's 16 in the National. Minnesota and Atlanta, 2 teams who finished last in their respective divisions a year ago.
Turned it around primarily because of starting pitching. It's more than that, but that gets it started.
Keith Miller takes a fastball for a strike. 2 down, nobody on base here in the 6th inning. The Reds lead the Mets 7-0. Jose Rijo, in a masterful pitching performance, has allowed only 1 base runner, a single by Greg Jeffries, in the 5th inning after Rijo retired the first 14 men he faced. Fastball on the inside corner. It looks like Rijo has added a yard to his fastball.
He's so confident. It's just a matter in his mind whether he's going to strike him out or pop him out. I mean, there's no doubt in his mind he's going to get him out.
1 ball and 2 strikes to Miller. Down he goes, and that's strikeout number 6 for Rijo. So after 6 innings of play, it's the Cincinnati Reds 7 and the New York Mets nothing.
The world's toughest tennis.
Center field, new center fielder is Chuck Carr. And Carr makes the catch for out number 1. So Carr now at center field, and Darrell Boston replaces Keith Miller in right field. And the new Met pitcher and the 4th of the afternoon is Doug Simons, making his 35th appearance of the year, all in relief. His record is 2-2. He has not allowed a run in his last 3 appearances, covering 5 2/3 innings. So Simons is aboard as the new Met pitcher. 1 out. Mariano Duncan looks at strike 1.
A little short on power, but big on heart. Doug Simons, a little lefty. You know, when they say you're crafty, that means you don't have an explosive fastball. That's what Doug Simons is, crafty.
1 ball and 1 strike to Duncan, who is 1 for 3 with a single and a run batted in. Broken bat, roller to third base. Howard Johnson across the diamond gets Duncan, and there are 2 down. Talk about Bo Jackson. You know, a lot of people may be skeptical as to what he'll really give to the White Sox. I think the Chicago people really feel that he will serve well as a DH and really give them some good DH activity in the final month.
I think they really do believe that, but I think in the back of his mind, Jeff Torborg has got to guard against Bo Jackson's comeback being a distraction to the White Sox trying to win the American League pennant because of all the publicity that he gets.
Rijo pops it up to center fielder Carr. He handled the first out and handles the third in a very rapid 1-2-3 inning for Doug Simons. So the Reds will come up, or the Mets will come up in the bottom of the 7th inning, and is off and takes a strike from Jose Rijo. Magadan is 0 for 2. Struck out and popped up. Only 1 base runner for the Mets today, a single by Jeffries in the 5th inning. Dave Magadan was asked by Jim Cott last night, do you ever think the Mets would lose 11 in a row with that great pitching they've got?
Area. the starters weren't, I don't think, were pitching up to their potential like they know they're capable of pitching. And then the games they were throwing well, we were playing bad defense behind them. We weren't scoring any runs. We just collectively as a team broke down. And it started in San Francisco where we got swept at San Francisco. And we just weren't playing like a team that wanted to make a run at the division championship. And for whatever reasons that was, who knows.
Magadan retired.
The shadow do. You listened to that when you were a kid.
It's Lamont Cranston. He had a good arm in right field, didn't he, Cranston?
But I think Magadan's comment points out that you look at the ability on the field of a lot of these major league teams, it's pretty close.
McReynolds fouls it off. 1 ball and 1 strike. Well, look.
But oftentimes it's which team plays the best, not necessarily which team has the best talent.
Yankees coming to within a run of the Blue Jays. Here's the 1-1 pitch. Swing and a miss on a good slider by Rijo, and the count is 1-2. Well, last year the Reds won wire to wire. Everything was peaceful. This year there are some problems all over. I mean, teams, you can go back, you know, in your day, I mean, fights in the dugout and things like that.
Yeah, but we're in the information age. All of this is available on television. That doesn't mean that it didn't happen years ago. There were a lot of little battles up the dugout runway that you had with teammates.
McReynolds, fly ball to right field. O'Neill is there, and there are 2 down.
You know, they're in the heat of battle, and when the game is over, you're at the other guy's locker saying, hey, the game's over. The Hall of Famer, Rod Carew, a teammate of mine, I can recall a situation where he and I, we disagreed on a play at second base, got up the runway, and we had our words with one another on television, and you think it's unusual and new. It isn't. It's always gone on. It always will.
Corey Wills said when we've had peaceful dugouts, we didn't win. When we had some problems, we won. When he was that outstanding shortstop for the Dodgers. You saw that the Yankees have regained the lead over the Blue Jays, 6-5. Here's Howard Johnson with 2 outs. Fastball, this is 1-0. Johnson has struck out, looking, and grounded out. There have not been many fly balls hit off of Rijo today. The first 2 batters here have been retired by virtue of outfield flies. There's a strike on the slider, 2-1. Howard Johnson with 26 home runs and 81 runs batted in. Second in the league in homers and 3rd in runs batted in. So he's done his job as a run producer. Fouls it away.
Yeah, you look at some of the numbers at the end of the season, and the Mets will say, boy, we've had pretty good years, but 3 very important phases of this game are how you play in the field. Contracts aren't based on that, how you run the bases. And coming out of that middle relief, that's what's plagued the Reds a little bit this year. Those 3 phases the Mets rather have not done well. That's why they're under 500.
Hopped up. Larkin will get the call to the right of second base, and a 1-2-3 inning again for Rijo. With their starting pitching, only a game behind. They still have 6 up against the Dodgers. Herm Winningham hits a pop-up, playable for Magadan in foul territory, and there's 1 out.
That's why in this business we look at teams in spring training, and everybody wants you to make a prediction. Who's going to win? You know, name your picks. You can only look foolish because you never know what's going to transpire, and the Atlanta Braves are a good example of that. You know, you look at them halfway through the year and say, pretty nice story. They're doing well. But when you hear players on the Cincinnati team say, you know, they might be a better team than the Dodgers.
And the longer they last in the race, the more confident they have and the more they feel they can do it. So I don't think anyone has to worry about their confidence at this stage.
They're a better team in the field. In fact, to ensure that, they even got a new groundskeeper and retooled the field at Fulton County Stadium to make it a better surface.
Al Morris with 2 hits and 2 RBIs today lines it down the left field line, and that should be extra bases for Morris. Chasing it is McReynolds, and Hal Morris will move into second base with his 2nd double of the game and his 3rd hit. So this is the bad shoulder and all. He hasn't given Lou Piniella the power he's expected, but he's done everything else at the plate.
I'm sure as he ran past Dave Magadan at first base, Magadan was saying, that's the kind of year I should be having. They're very similar hitters. Use the entire field, and Morris hitting that ball to left field, and it's exactly the way Magadan hits when he's on his game.
That's the first hit off of Doug Simons and the 14th hit for the Reds today. And here's Barry Larkin. He has 2 hits, including a home run and 3 RBIs. Looks at a breaking pitch, 1-0. You know, the Braves also have terrific depth that they have in both the infield and outfield.
Talk about some sneaky, names sneaking up on you with big years. Not only depth, but unnoticed players around the world of baseball. Ronnie Gant. And here Dave Justice. He's been out of the lineup for a long time. He's back in here. They've been without Sid Bream for a long time.
Templeton has been a fantastic acquisition. Pendleton. Templeton sitting on the Met bench.
The Mets thought Templeton would be a good acquisition for them and help them win the division. Templeton has done his part. That hasn't worked out. But yes, Terry, there's Tempe. Not only Pendleton in the field, but among the league batting leaders in the National League, and many think a candidate along with Gant for the Player of the Year, most valuable player.
Larkin fouls it off, and the count is 2 balls and 2 strikes. Brian Hunter, who hit a home run last night, back-to-back right after Justice's drive, and Keith Mitchell, some young, fine outfielders, but you don't have to go back to the starting pitching in Glavine. Smoltz, Avery.
Steve Avery, Charlie Leibrandt, that veteran that gives him a nice little mixture in there, an off-speed pitcher to go along with Avery and Glavine.
Larkin trying to get around on Simons's fastball. 2 balls and 2 strikes to the Reds shortstop. When Bill Doran and Larkin came back to action after being on the disabled list early in June, the Reds went on a 20-9 streak, and that was the best segment of baseball they played all year. Two and 2 still to Larkin. Doug Simons, the 4th Met pitcher this afternoon. Wally Whitehurst knocked out in the 3rd inning. Larkin swings and misses and strikes.
He's not a hard thrower, but he's a crafty little guy. See that slider down out of the strike zone? He takes advantage of the fact that he knows hitters are going to be aggressive and swing the bat against him.
Here's O'Neill, doubled in the 1st inning. He's also walked twice today. Fouls it off for a strike. So would you say that the Darryl Strawberry deal was a bad deal? I mean, can you just make that judgment at this point for the Mets, or it goes beyond that, doesn't it?
Well, I think it goes beyond that the Mets were going to change the complexion of their ball club, and at this stage they didn't feel Strawberry was worth the kind of money he is to the Dodgers.
Speaking about the kind of money, what about Frank Viola? Not so much the money, but the length of contract, and the Mets could see him leave.
Yeah, that again has become a distraction, and it goes beyond that. The press wants to talk about his contract, but Frank's having some problems mechanically, not getting the ball where he wants to. Last night, Carry-On dropped the ball that should have been caught. All those things multiply into a tough year for him, and yet the contract has become a distraction. And the same thing happened to him in Minnesota. He's a very sensitive guy, and I'm sure he wished it would be handled in the offseason.
1 ball, 2 strikes to Paul O'Neill. 2 outs. Morris, the runner at second base. Reds sailing along 7-0. Fouled off. Interesting how it goes in baseball. Here was Viola, traded for all those pitchers to the Mets, probably to win the big one. And the Twins were struggling. They lost 90 in 100 games. He knew what it was like then. And look how things have turned around, where the Twins are the team really having the glorious year, and the Mets having a problem.
They got 5 pitchers. And 3 of those pitchers, 2 in particular, are big contributors to the Twins in first place. Rick Aguilera, Kevin Tapani, and David West has contributed from time to time. Tim Drummond and Jack Savage in the minor leagues.
Ball gets away from Sasser. The pitch is taken for a ball. And moving over to third is Morris.
You know, those are decisions as a general manager you make as a player when you throw a pitch. And if the hitter hits it, you live with it. As a general manager, you make the same kind of decisions. Milt Pappas for Frank Robinson, trades like that. You say, hey, we think they're going to help our ball club. They don't all work out.
Wild pitch charge to Doug Simons to allow Morris to move to third. Count is 2-2 to O'Neill. And the count is full, 3-2. Sabo would be next. The Reds with 2 runs in each of the first 3 innings, and they added another in the 6th. The Mets have been limited to only a single. O'Neill pops it up. Sasser may have a play. And that'll do it. The Reds get a hit and leave 1, and the Mets come up in the bottom of the 8th inning. Way down. You bring it to its knees, I'm sure. Mackey Sasser takes ball 1 from Rijo as we go to the bottom of the 8th.
There's a guy bringing some hitters to their knees. He has been very impressive.
Two balls and no strikes to the Mets catcher.
See him right now. That was a changeup. He's what pitching coach Stan Williams would say is a 2-pitch, maybe a 2 1/3 pitch pitcher, because he uses very few changeups.
Line foul.
That was another one. That was like an off-speed slider that he's trying to blend in, but oftentimes he is a 1-pitch pitcher. That slider is so hard. It's like a good hard cut fastball that he can throw it pitch after pitch. Very economical.
Look at the consistency of pitches by innings throughout this game.
That's what you strive for, about 13 pitches an inning. Get those hitters out of there no more than 4 pitches. Here it is. Do what you want with it.
Ground ball hit to Duncan at second base. Sasser is retired, 1 away. Well, you've heard of the brown bags in football. Greg Jeffries, who is the only Met to reach base today, a single with 2 out in the 5th inning after Rijo had retired the first 14 men he faced. Strike 1 to Greg. Signs from Jeff Reed. 1-1.
Hard to believe. He's just 26 years old, but he's in his 3rd organization. Reds got him for Dave Parker. Yankees gave him up.
Over swinging on a pitch away. 1 ball and 2 strikes.
The one thing that probably requires patience from a general manager, a pitching coach more than anything else is to stay with a pitcher long enough to see him develop, and Rijo certainly has.
MVP of the World Series last year. Former Met. Randy Myers.
Mr. Mello.
Swing and a miss, and Jeffries goes down. Strikeout number 7 for Rijo. Of course, Myers and Piniella had a few words in a game that we had this year. For Super Bowl winner Terry Bradshaw. Huh? You ran into him today, didn't
you? Yes, he was there. Talking a little hardball. Good arm. He'd have been a good pitcher.
Chris Sabo. And Chris Sabo, the only player in the Reds lineup who has not hit safely. He has driven in a run on the sacrifice fly in the 6th inning. Takes a fastball for strike 1. He's done well against Tim Burke in his career. 4 for 7, including a home run. Pops this one up to the right side of the infield. Jeffries in short right field, called off by Darrell Boston, who makes the catch for a call. Lou Piniella said he was biased against the Reds. The Umpires Association then filed suit against Piniella for $5 million in a defamation of character suit. Lou thinks it should be thrown out. The two have not spoken, but here they are. As it still hangs, Braggs fouls it down the right field line. What about the entire umpire-player problem? It may even go back to the Roger Clemens incident last year.
I think the only thing and I say we because I'm a baseball fan, I like the game, been in it 33 years, what we'd like to see from umpires is accountability. You know, if you throw a hanging slider, it's a home run, you're accountable for it, you talk about it. Everybody realizes umpires aren't perfect, they're going to make mistakes, but when they're not accessible, then you can't talk to them about situations. It's like they don't want to be accountable. They have a very strong association. They have the same benefits that a lot of organizations do, but they lack that one thing, I think, in baseball people's minds: accountability.
Lays off the breaking ball, and it's 2-1.
High leg kick there from Tim Burke.
Broken bat, smash that one. Roller to second baseman Jeffries, and there are 2 down.
You know, and the other thing in baseball, if you're a player and you go to spring training, 24 pitchers are the umpires. It's a pretty closed fraternity, and I think that's another area that if the competitive standards were such that these guys are they're good people, they're the best there, but to keep that standard, nice, honest competition would raise that standard of umpiring.
Jeff Reed with 2 out takes ball 1. He is 2 for 4 with a pair of singles.
It was surprising last night that there were no words spoken between Piniella and Darling, but he has said since the incident the umpires have been a bit distant from him. I guess that's understandable, not pleasant.
In for the strike. 1 ball, 1 strike. The Reds have led from the get-go in this one. They scored 2 in the first on Barry Larkin's 2-run homer, added 2 in the second, 2 in the third as Wally Whitehurst was shelled in the 3rd inning. Meanwhile, on the other side of the ledger, Jose Rijo has allowed only 1 base runner, 1 hit by Greg Jeffries in the 5th. He has been masterful this afternoon. 1 ball and 2 strikes to Jeff Reed. Rijo has good reason to be relaxed and smiling on the Cincinnati.
Talk about enjoying your work. Man, he is having a ball today.
Elster, Chuck Carr batting in the 9th order, and then the pitcher spot leading off will face Rijo in the 9th inning. Line drive, 1-2-3 inning, and we go to the bottom of the 9th inning. 59 and 62, coming in with the same record as the Mets, but 9 games behind the Dodgers. Actually, the Reds and the Giants are tied at 9 behind. The Braves trailing the Dodgers by 1 game, and in the National League East, the Mets find themselves 12.5 behind, are only a game ahead of the Philadelphia Phillies, and that's been a team that's been out of it a long time, but quietly really making.
Jim Fregosi seems to have that team turned around, going in the right direction.
Kevin Elster will lead off in the bottom of the 9th inning, followed by Chuck Carr and a pinch hitter against Jose Rijo.
A lot of people might have raised their eyebrows when early in the game we showed where Jose Rijo has the best earned run average in National League history during his 50-plus starts. I think today you get an indication why.
Looking for his 10th win in 14 decisions. Elster's 0 for 2, swings and misses on a good slider.
His slider his slider is 90-plus. A little cut fastball action. His fastball is a slider faster than a lot of guys' fastballs.
Line drive to right field, base hit for Elster. Only the second base runner, second hit for the Mets in the ball game. Chuck Carr will come to the plate. Carr pinch hit in the 6th inning. And line sharply to Paul O'Neill. Sabo is playing on the grass at 3rd base. Fastball on the inside corner. The coordinating producer of Major League Baseball on CBS is Rick LaCivita. Today's telecast was produced by Bob Dekas and directed by Bob Fishman. The senior producer of CBS Sports is Ed Gorin, and the executive producer of CBS Sports is Ted Shaker. Carr way behind that fastball by Rijo, and it's 0-2. No balls and 2 strikes. Chris Donalds is swinging a bat on the on-deck circle, and he'll come up for Tim Burke. Just missing outside, 1-2.
Sometimes when you're pitching a masterpiece like Rijo and you're in the windup all the time, once you go to the set position, it takes you a little while to get control and the rhythm. Not so with him. He's been equally effective and dominant.
Carr with a good eye, takes low, 2 balls and 2 strikes. 7-0. The Reds have led early and never looked back. Barr choking up on the bat, lifts a high pop-up, out of play. 2-2 to count. The other day, Bud Harrelson, and he indicated to you he thought things were going to be all right. And he actually has said to the press he thinks he's going to be back next year.
He thinks he does. You wouldn't expect him to say anything else, but underneath that face right there, very serious-minded. But there's not the same lightness and fire that there was as a player.
High pop fly, foul territory, giving chase is Braggs, and he makes the catch for out number 1.
You know, and oftentimes you wonder whether deep down inside that is really the position that Buddy Harrelson or any other manager that might be in a bind really wants to continue to be a manager.
Well, tonight on CBS, watch Top Cops, followed by live NFL preseason action. The defending AFC champion Buffalo Bills travel to Chicago to battle the Bears. That's coming up tonight on CBS. Chris Donalds will be pinch hitting for Tim Burke. The pitcher spot is the number 1 position in the Mets batting order. Donalds was recalled from Tidewater 4 days ago for the 3rd time this year. Hit .303 for the Tides and takes strike 1.
See him in that little bit of a stance like George Brett, his boyhood idol. Grew up in the same part of California and tries to incorporate some of George.